2024 is going to go down as the year of the infamous hit and run Valorant playstyle. Throughout this entire year, the one playstyle that has become extremely dominant, because that key word dominant is important. Valorant at the end of the day is a tactical shooter. In order to provide the tactics, the game should be built in a way where there isn't one playstyle. The only way that you play certain maps, certain compositions, or in must-win scenarios. As the game progresses, players gain a better understanding of the mechanics. Skill improves over time, and these two variables contribute to new playstyles being discovered. That's the beauty of a tactical shooter. As the player base grows in understanding the game is played differently. A tactical shooter never really stays the same unless a certain playstyle becomes too dominant. If you want to win, which is the ultimate goal for anybody playing a tactical shooter, they're ultimately playing to win a match, meaning that you as the player and as a team collectively come to the agreement that you're going to put forth whatever strategy you need to do to win. So why provide this background? Why provide this context? I think it's very important to understand the situation that we find ourselves to be in, because I'm just going to come out and say it. When this rework was announced, I am pro the ping rework system coming out. I'll just come out and say it. That's my bias. I think this change should, in theory, affect how this playstyle is going to be played. I don't think it'll be as dominant until people eventually figure out that they can align themselves with ping. A little bit more strategy is placed behind where the spike is planted. Obviously, a little bit more coordination is going to be required, and while that struggle may happen at the beginning, over time, as players increase their knowledge, increase their coordination, we're going to find ourselves back at square one. That's why you get some of this pushback. A lot of people are pushing back on this rework system because they view it as a temporary fix. And truth be told, after reading through some of these comments, it's hard for me to disagree. I also agree that this doesn't seem to be the main reason for why this playstyle came to be in the first place. Yes, the ping system will have an effect, but ultimately, the consensus on the other side of this argument seems to be that it's the maps, the Valorant maps, that have allowed for these playstyles to become dominant. The one argument that I really connected with was the argument between the old maps, the original maps that came out, and how they were designed versus some of the newer maps, and how the hit and run playstyle that I talked about seems to be more prevalent in some of the newer maps in contrast to the older maps. While there are some players, like myself, that are content with this temporary solution, allowing not only Valorant more time to figure out what do they need to implement, what do they need to change on their end, so that the player base can adapt and stray away from this playstyle. It also gives us a solution right now, and while it might be temporary, we do have to have some confidence that the development team can figure this out. But that's where the divide takes place. Some players are upset about this because they don't want a temporary fix, they want a permanent solution, and that, as always, is a much harder thing to provide. But the reason that there's so much contention there is because the temporary fix is a change to a permanent feature, a feature that since its release has not been changed. And so initially, I will not lie to you, I did not understand, do people really care this much about the ping system? Like, yes, don't get me wrong, I have definitely used it in the way that that the development team is changing it for. I've planted a spike and gone, oh, I die on site, and then I have to ping wherever the spike is for my teammates so that they can shoot through a smoke or so that they can do a lineup. I've been on both ends. Been on the end where I'm a defender trying to defuse, and all I'm getting hit by are sprays coming from the other side of a smoke, and I don't have enough time to push, and it's pretty much a lose-lose situation. I either push up and get nowhere, or I try to make a defuse happen, and obviously that's not going to work if they can ping exactly where that spike was planted. So this contention is actually very real. I initially was going to come on here and just talk about how, wow, like, I don't understand, why are people so against this rework? But after reading through some of the comments, through some of the posts made on Reddit, on Twitter, even in YouTube comments, it's pretty clear to see that a lot of people are up in arms because the real problem that a lot of people feel like this game has is the map design. And to them, the fact that Riot is coming out with this temporary solution, changing a feature that has not changed since the beginning, it's a concession on their part. That like, hey, we like either they're not aware that their map design is not up to par to what some of the player base expects, or they're not aware that some of the player base thinks their map design is an issue at all, which I would push against that second one. I don't think it's that. I think the Riot team has done a really good job, especially this year, of illustrating to us that they do pay attention to what the community says. They are always pretty much paying attention to what the community is an outcry for or wants to see changed. So I don't think that they're sitting there being like, oh, our maps are perfect, they don't need any changes. I think they understand that some changes need to be made to the maps, but I would be willing to bet that they probably are more so stuck on what changes to implement, and specifically what changes will be enough to not only appease the community that is asking for these changes, but also to address the main issue, which is this playstyle that's becoming too dominant. Because if you're still here in this video and you're thinking to yourself, I don't understand why it's such a big deal that a playstyle is becoming so dominant, or like, I love this playstyle, like this makes the game fun for me. I don't think, at least for myself, if I'm speaking for myself, I don't think the problem is we need to remove that playstyle altogether. The issue is that that playstyle is the #1 playstyle, and it seems like if you're not doing that playstyle on Abyss, for example, or Sunset, you're not playing to win. And at the end of the day, that is the main goal that as a player and as a team you have in these tactical shooters. You are coming up with all of these different strategies to win. The more experienced players, the players that develop more skill, the reason they're oftentimes so good is because they have experience with different scenarios. They have different tactics to address different problems, and being able to switch between those and decide which one is better depending on the situation, that takes skill. That requires experience, and that's how you demonstrate it in a game. If a playstyle is so dominant that somebody that just started this week can pick up on it and go, oh yeah, this is how you're supposed to play Valorant, that is an issue. That is especially an issue in a tactical shooter. So I get it. It's probably not that good that they're changing a feature that to many didn't need to be changed. And I also get it. Fix the darn maps, I hear you say. And you know what? I agree. There needs to be some accountability from the Riot team for at least coming out and saying, hey, you know what, we get it, our maps, you know, are leading to our map design is leading to some of these playstyles forming. That was never our intention. We're gonna do something about it. Similarly to what they did with the agents, they for the last 2 years have been going on about these agent changes that they've implemented and are going to implement. And I would argue that many of these changes have been good. Now, was one of these changes the change that made Neon so dominant in the first place? Yes it was. But for their credit, they also made a lot of good changes. They brought back Astra from being irrelevant. They made Cypher perhaps a little too dominant, but they took Cypher from a very bad place to a key player in a lot of setups. And they just recently made changes to one of their original agents, Phoenix, arguably their star agent. And it wasn't a small little rework or tweak to one of their abilities. It was a whole rework of the kit. So to Riot's credit, I firmly believe that they will eventually make the change that needs to happen to fix some of the issues with the game. When that happens, nobody knows. But I do think that at some point, Riot needs to realize they're obviously not going to be able to please their entire player base. But with that said, I just found this topic really interesting. Again, I was very much on the side of why would anybody be against this rework? And I still kind of am, but I understand better why players are up in arms for these changes and how they're being implemented. With that said, if you enjoyed this rant, like, comment, subscribe. Please do comment, actually. How are you feeling about this rework? What's your position on the whole map design versus changing the ping system? How do you think Riot moves on from this? Is this the end of Riot? Question mark, question mark, question mark? All those fun things. Drop them down below in the comments. That's it from me. Hope you'll have a good one.